I love that guy. Well, let's make sure we do this right. So, as they say, behind every great man is another one. I aim to be that other man. Let's do some quick demographics. Who here is development background? Quick raise your hands. Fantastic. Operations, systems, database, security, networking. Wow, we have a good mix. Management. I like to joke and say management is formerly useful, but now they kind of deal in PowerPoint. Fantastic. Anybody from business? This could be accounting, legal, sales. One sad, lonely person. Let's be extra inclusive of her because she is a part of DevOps. How many are first-timers again? Awesome. So the great thing about the first rule of conferences is if you make eye contact, you need to introduce yourself. This isn't part of my talk yet. I'm just taking up time. Introduce yourself. People are the best part of this. And it's, pardon me for technical difficulties. The other thing is if you came with a group, try, disperse your group. Don't hang, you see these people all the time. Could be your friends or the people you actually work with, or both, I suppose. Meet the new people and get in touch with them. Yep, that's better. We can move this too. All right. There we go. So when giving a presentation, you should try to tell a story. Unfortunately, what I want to talk about doesn't really lend itself to a single story. And there we go. So it'd be a story with innumerable possibilities. It would be a story of every team, of every person, and of every time. Deep, I know. So it's a vast understatement to say that every person is different. And this is exponentially more true for every team and every point in time. And since it's impossible to tell every story, I'm going to talk to you about possibilities. And I hope that some of them resonate with you. So you want to be hired as an agent of change. Here's your helmet. This is the safety equipment that will help provide you with sanity and job satisfaction. Step 1, run. Run fast and run hard. This is not for the faint of heart, or the impolitic, or those who lack in patience. It is stressful, frustrating, and it can be painful. Some of these experiences even made me question my own worth. I just wanted to point out real quick, I'm American, so can we just agree that if any of my jokes don't land, it's just because of those differences? So, there is no step 2. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's go to break. So as the story of our successes and love of culture spreads, more companies are going to want to jumpstart their own cultural shift. And this may sound appealing for a number of reasons, but the path is fraught with peril. Wow, and there is massive lag between my slides, so pretend the timing's better. They want the pearl that is DevOps, but they think that you could be the seed of that pearl. What's often not realized is that a pearl is the result of introducing an irritant. Man, this is awful.
It is. I grabbed yours.
Okay.
Sorry about this.
That's okay. Hey, 2 weeks ago I broke the podium, so. Yeah, give it time. See, we're all about introducing failure and moving on. And if things get too bad, I'll just continue on with interpretive dance. Or it could be that my laptop's 5 years old. No. Pretend what's up there is freaking brilliant. Have you tried turning it off and back on again? All right, we can all just huddle around my laptop. There. Actually, let me try to do one more again. And if this is the worst thing that happens, our organizers did a fantastic job, haven't they? And our crew. Well, this guy's kicking ass.
Sorry, guys.
No, it's fine. These things happen. All right, we were better off with the first one. The audience gets restless. Brace yourself. What other?
Got nothing here. Back to the original.
Do you have the Ethernet-based one?
Is it seeing that
We
you
are
just
the
left?
original.
Yeah.
Okay.
There.
Where's the other one? Put the original one back in. You got that's the original one? Yeah, do it again.
Hey! Ladies and gentlemen, our... Oh,
Oh, then it went away as soon as Have you got? You don't have it.
see, the equipment worked for J. Paul Reed. Ladies and gentlemen, my background. It was. We can fix this in post.
So we can export from this laptop and run it on Paul's.
Sure.
Yeah?
That's
Okay.
fine.
We got a thumb drive?
Hey,
The
buddy.
solution to all problems.
I don't know if I trust that dirty thing. I know you.
Yeah, I know. I have an old version of Keynote. The old.
That's going to be a problem.
You just export it. You can save it as an old version.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So, how many nerds does it take to give a presentation? All of them. Da, 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 da. data bits. Keynote 09, right? Yeah. Oh, look at it go. What's that? You. I couldn't see you before. Oh, whatever. Okay. You'll all be tested on this later. Thank you. So that's a sign this needs to be retired. That's okay. It's
always something that's wonderful in front of
it's always something.
everyone. You can talk about this.
Nasti e tuzza sto cori scatena luci vuoi solo tu. Dinasti Petruzza sto cori scatena luci vuoi solo tu. Scoglie una guassa lontano partiamo tutti insieme per il Luciano e poi si vuole Dio le gambamo.
All right, folks. Hi, I'm Waldo, and I'm here to talk about your agent of change and apparently DevOps Day's presentation, Chaos Monkey. I did a much better job last time. So let's skip the intro. So you want to be hired as an agent of change. Run fast, run hard. There is no step 2. So again, as the story of our love and success of our culture spreads, more companies are going to want to adopt their own DevOps shift. They're going to want some help kickstarting that. Now, this might sound appealing for a number of reasons, but I assure you this path is fraught with peril. They want the pearl that is DevOps, and they think that you could be the seed of that pearl, but it's often forgotten that the seed of the pearl is an irritant. So what I want to provide you, the prospective DevOpsian, is a safety equipment so that your sanity and career satisfaction remain intact. So briefly, who am I? I'm a geek, and I've done some stuff. If you really care about knowing what some of they are, you can look at my LinkedIn or GitHub. You really don't. But you should be prepared to know that I love GIFs. Moving on. So this is not specific to any one company, but is collected from my accumulated experience and those from my stories from my friends and peers. Your mileage will vary. Now, as many stories as I've heard and experienced myself, it really isn't anything more than stories from Anecdata, but I hope that they are helpful and resonate with you. So the last bit of audience participation that I want to do, could we shout out a couple reasons why companies actually hire people? Make money, loneliness. Increase capacity. Make shit work. Or not, sometimes. Grow the business. So everything, those are great. Some of those I didn't come up with. Everything that I could come up with I boiled down to 2 reasons. They either want to do more of the same, including replacing a departure, or they're looking to fill a need that they can't serve now. So how do companies hire? They do interviews. Now, there's a lot that's wrong with them, but I want to focus on 2 things, and they'll kind of inform a third. First thing is that they're scheduled, and it's seldom long enough. Like 30 minutes might be enough time to tell you this person is a no, but is an hour really enough time to tell you that they're a yes? Is that enough time for them to have a good picture of your team? The second problem? Everybody lies. It's often not intentional, but what they tell you will not always be true to your perspective. Between agreeing on what terms mean or to having an objective view of quality and success, you can't count on having a mutual understanding. Some things are going to be overstated, and some things will be understated. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And this is going to be hard to sort. This makes life difficult for you. The worst part is that it won't be consistent. What can I even believe? What does it mean when they say they have some automation? What does it mean when they say engineers are empowered to make decisions? I've been told many times that engineers are empowered, but have seen realities where it's really all but for trivial decisions, it has to go to some type of management. Asking how often they work on paying down technical debt might give you a clue. You have to decide where the uncertainty lies and if that's good enough for you. Remember, when you go into an interview, you are interviewing them as well. They get to make the first offer, but you get the final acceptance. So going on to it, you're considering a role, and during interviews or discussions, you notice a word keeps coming up. you're going to want to pay attention to how often you hear this word. And before you lose your mind, stop and ask them, what do you mean when you say DevOps? And a discussion will happen. Don't shy away from the sore spots. Ask them the painful things like getting developers on the pager or giving people access to production. So this is the Gartner hype cycle. You're going to want to compare the DevOps per minute rate to the chart so you can roughly gauge their DevOps maturity. And before you tweet that, no, DevOps maturity is not a thing, stop it. So what role are you playing? Are you the architect, the evangelist, the cleric? Here's the thing. It almost doesn't matter. If everybody agreed that they want this culture shift, they would already be doing it. Now, they might say that they just need a voice. There we go. They might just say they need a voice to show the way. This voice is not one of the bunnies. You can't be it is much harder to be a peer and drive change. You need to be the person with the treats. Because the person they're hiring to change their culture is not a peer influencer. That's called a director. You cannot do all the things. You cannot change all the minds. Easier said than done is very appropriate here. Just go get some consensus. Again, if everybody agreed, they would be doing it already. So the next problem is expectations. Is once they hire you, they think they've done this. And then you hear something like, well, we'll have you meet daily with all of the stakeholders to discuss their needs and your progress. It would be entirely reasonable for you to ask them to describe a timeline of expectations and goals, which would be fabulous. Too bad the work they need actually looks like this. Because in your interview, they're going to talk about the awesome things, like continuous deployment pipelines and dashboards. But in your due diligence, you're going to ask about the boring foundational things, like centralized logging, monitoring, instrumentation. Do you have contextualized alerts? How do you ensure that machines in the same pool have the same config? How do you CI? How's your documentation? Why don't you tell me about your agile transformation? Do you require that tests pass before code's deployed? Are developers first responders to pages? How soon after a minimum viable product do you ensure that things are anti-fragile and highly available? What happens when failure occurs? What does a post-mortem look like? Are those problems identified in a post-mortem prioritized as the most important work? It should be, because it's been proven to break things. What tools do you run in-house versus the ones you pay for as a service? So whatever questions they decide to actually answer, the answer is not going to be, hell yeah, we've got stats, and our alerts first try some automated fixes before they actually wake somebody up. And everything is in config management or Docker. It's going to be like, yeah, we have some alerts on high CPU, disk, and RAM on most of the boxes. We've got this monitoring tool that you have to click around to get new machines added. Wah, wah. So again, being the responsible professional you are, you're going to tell them that doing continuous delivery 20 times a day is great, but you have a lot of foundational work to do first. So driving at any speed when you can't see the windscreen is reckless, and you need help. You need to talk to the real stakeholders. Who are the people who really write code and really keep things running? Is your ops team a firefighting team or operations engineering? Get them in a room for an hour or two. You need real talk. You can't let this be an interview. It's got to be a conversation. You're here to get to know them. And this is the easiest time to make uninformed judgments. To say, oh, you can solve that with this. You can solve X with Y. Don't offer solutions. At this point, you need to absorb. Be cognizant of your superpower of having fresh eyes. Remember, just like Soylent Green, DevOps is made of people. So they know what's hurting them, but they can't help you to help them because they're too busy. They've always been too busy, and by now, they can't see a way out. So they're going to depend on you to save them. It's a kind of learned helplessness and hopelessness in some cases. They may have lost hope because they're used to bringing up concerns and them getting overridden. They have projects to improve things, projects on the books, dollars assigned to them. But they spend all their time firefighting. They're exhausted. This might be a sign that authority is not aligned with responsibility. So you're going to want to get an idea of what the org chart looks like. Not only do you want to find out if it's management heavy, like, well, we've got 20 directors, but half of them have only a couple of direct reports. But how far are you from being able to make real decisions and have real influence? And this isn't a Machiavellian scheme. It's not a power play. This is to help ensure that you can be successful. This agent of change needs to be empowered to direct change. They are explicitly looking for someone to undo bad decisions. Now, I normally would shy away from the term bad decisions because that's a value judgment. Like the people who made the decision were doing the right thing to the best of their ability and knowledge at the time. But in retrospect, or at least now, that decision is no longer good enough. But people get tied up in their decisions. So be wary if they want, you have to be wary if they want change, but they're hiring for a leaf node in the org. If so, some of my friends might strongly disagree. I'm guessing Steve and Paul will. But you might rather be a consultant. Hiring an employee versus hiring a consultant incurs a vastly different power dynamic. Employees are paid to do the work that they're told to do. A consultant is paid to give advice. As always, the company's free to ignore the suggestions, but as a consultant, you don't have to live with the consequences of somebody else's bad decisions. So, you've taken the job, and you need to orient yourself and find out how big the mess really is. You need a show and tell. The great news is they're going to have done some stuff. Maybe not the stuff you would have want to have, but there's some stuff. You can see how things can be improved, but be careful about making suggestions yet, because here and now, you're going to get into fights. You're going to have to be careful about the change that you bring. If you introduce too much too quickly, you're going to find yourself on the wrong end of an immune response from the company culture. You're an outsider, and you will be for some time. You need to reassure them that you're there to help. You're trying to make things better. But prepare to have arguments, lots of them. Circular arguments, redundant, recursive arguments. It's going to be fantastic. Not that you shouldn't be able to defend your reasoning, but they're going to be defensive because you are, in effect, challenging the work that they have been doing. You might have some outlandish ideas. but you have a target. You can see some things that you can solve. As much as I love this quote and this sentiment, this actually hasn't worked very well for me. But for argument's sake, and because that's how I wrote this talk, let's say that you've been unable to convince them to disrupt their org chart and convert their engineer position into a director. Ta-da! Oh, come on. I love that. So I found that it's hard to predict how well new products are going to be received. So here's a diagram. You tell them, here's a diagram describing what a life cycle of code deployment from creation through deployment should look like. And the response might shock you. Like, that kid looks irrationally happy with it, but it's something that he wanted and now has. Oops, sorry. So, heartened by this success, okay. So, heartened by this success, you go out and say, all right, here's Logstash. And they see somewhat underwhelmed. But now with this, you don't have to log into boxes to check the logs anymore. They're collected all in one place. You can gather stats from your logs. You can get alerts and trigger actions from them. It's config managed. It's highly available. It's horizontally scalable with no ceremony. You stand up a box, give it a roll, and it's there. You might have a feeling or two here. Because what you have here is a failure to communicate. And when you have a failure to communicate, you'll get ambushed. Your culture and theirs are not entirely meshing yet. So this is actually the second time I've given this talk. And 2 days before the first time, I was sitting at work trying to fix something, trying to get something to work. And I'm in a moderate state of freak out because this presentation is not coming together quite how I'd wanted. And I realized that the frustration that I've been experiencing in these roles and situations sounds familiar. I've heard some of these before. I'm an outsider. I'm vastly outnumbered. I have radical ideas. And a lot of well-intentioned people don't see how they're hurting themselves and others. That despite everything that I say being in the team's best interest, it's being eyed skeptically. There's endless discussion and argument and second guessing and feeling like I'm not being listened to. This is not a great feeling. It occurs to me that this might be a glimpse of what it's like to not look like me in tech. I was stunned from where I sit with all my, as I like to call it, Viking privilege. It was a revelation. There may have been a couple messages sent. So what I'd like to leave you with is a personal parable. The first time I encountered a Keurig was at this one company, like small office, very few people there. They had rules. Not everybody followed them. You go make your cup, you put your cup in the thing, put your mug in, start it. When the coffee was done, you took the little container out and threw it away. The next person walked up and did likewise. But some people didn't follow that. They would leave the cup there for the next person to clean out. This caused feelings to happen. Frustrations occurred. Because why will Phil not just remove his cup? You know who this guy is, all the time. Frustrations happened, things were said behind closed doors. Not because of the Keurig, but for other reasons, I left that company and went to another. And they also had a Keurig. And one morning, I'm in before everybody else, and I see there's a cup in there. Oh, there's some lazy person here. Slightly peeved, I remove it, throw it away, make my own cup of coffee. And then, it wasn't too long before a queue lined up. There was a time where 3 or 4 of us needed coffee at the same time. And I noticed that each person left their cup, when they were done, left the cup in there. And it just wasn't a thing. They didn't care that they had, it was expected that when they walked up, they were going to clean out the thing, remove the old cup, place their own in, and make their coffee. So in this, it was really a startling moment for me to realize I'd had this expectation. It was such a silly, stupid thing that was causing a lot of emotional work. It's easy to consider and realize that your expectations frame your outlook, but it's hard to do in the moment. So as you step into these roles, consider that your happiness is framed by your expectations. So in closing, it's easy and likely even for the things that I've done and tried that didn't work for me, they may work for you. The hope is that my experiences can help you to have a great life and to bring out the change that you want to see in the world. And if nothing else, I encourage you to fail your way to success. Do we have any questions? And here we have some bonus gifts.
All right, guys, big round of applause for Waldo. So we're actually not going to do questions right now, but if you guys have questions for Waldo, you can tweet them out or find him at lunch or during open spaces. And what we're actually going to do now is find Waldo. What we're going to do now is we're going to skip the 10-minute break, and we'll jump straight into our third talk of the day, which will be Arthur Maltzan. It will be quite magical, yes. Setting up honeypots or doing penetration testing on the CVC Wi-Fi. Please don't do that. That's for later. That's day 2. All right, Arthur Maltzan.